Hey there. Welcome to Tips and Techniques for Actors, Authors, and Storytellers. My guest today is my very good friend, Gregory Harrison, somebody whose work I have admired since I was a very, very little boy, toddler in my mother's lap. I'm sure you all know of his work. He has, since a guest star role on MASH, he has appeared in countless guest star roles, many series, including Logan's Run, Safe Harbor, Falcon Crest, Trapper John MD, over 50 TV movies, 24 miniseries. But he is also a very, very accomplished stage actor. I have had the privilege of working with him 3 times. The first time just over 20 years ago. And he's my guest today to talk about his storied career and also talk about craft and how to navigate a long life in this crazy thing that we do. So, Gregory, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you, Matt. I'm so happy to be here with you.
So, I want to jump back to the very beginning because you did not... You know, I wanted to be an actor from the time I can remember, you know, watching my dad as a little kid. I was like, oh my gosh, I want to do that. You didn't have any inkling that this was what you wanted to do when you were a young man. Is that correct?
No, I didn't. I had an inkling that it was probably what I wanted to do, you know, be out in front of people performing. I loved that even as a 4 and 5 and 6 year old, you know, little local community productions and variety shows in elementary school. I just always loved, you know, getting out and showing off and getting everybody's attention. But I never imagined that I could do it as a living, you know, as a profession until I was 15. I grew up in Catalina Island, born there. My father was born there. My grandfather started the glass bottom boats. My father ran them his whole life. And in 1965, when I was 15, you know my age, I outed myself. They shot a movie on my dad's boat called The Glass Bottom Boat with Doris Day and Rod Taylor. And because it was my dad's boat, they couldn't toss me off. You know, I was one of those townsfolk, one of those irritating locals who they just couldn't throw off the set. Right. So I was right there by they didn't even have a video village back then. You stood near the camera. The director stood near the camera and watched the performance and either liked it or didn't and said, cut, print, or not. And on this little boat, I watched Rod and Doris do these scenes over and over again. And by the end of that day, when I was 15, I knew that was what I would do for the rest of my life. Wow. It was like a process because I'd see them screw up and you'd see Doris Day go, oh, fuck. Let's do it again. And she was dropping F-bombs and being funny, and Rod was teasing her. And people were laughing and having fun, and it was creative. And I went, you can screw up and still keep doing it till you get it right? I thought there was some kind of a magic thing going on with acting. I just loved movies. I didn't know that they were, that it was possible for common folk, that everybody was a common folk before they became an actor.
Right.
I figured it was some magical being, you know, that I wasn't blessed with. But that day I figured out, oh, wait a minute. No, it's like a complicated puzzle, and you just make all these little pieces and put them together, and you do it until you get the pieces right, and then you move on. And in the meantime, I wanted to be that magician that I'd been watching my whole life up on the screen, changing the way people felt. You know, I thought that seemed to me like the most enjoyable, powerful, satisfying position, you know, benevolent kind of power that one could hope for. So I made that turn mentally that day, and instead of becoming a 3rd generation glass bottom boat captain, 6 more years went by. I ended up going, you know, into the Army, helicopter medic, getting out, and then going straight to Hollywood. But I always knew from the day I was 15 that that's what I was going to do.
So you were 15 when that happened, when the movie. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And then you got out of the Army, went to Hollywood. Yeah. And did you start studying? Did you find a mentor?
No, I started studying. Actually, I had been dating a girl on Catalina, and she was a tourist, had come over that summer after I got out of the Army. And I was doing a performance of the Fantastics in the Chi-Chi Club, which was a kind of decadent bar, but between 5 and 7 they had no business. So I said, let's do a show. Let's put on a musical. So I did the Fantastics, and this girl had come to see it, and she and I had started dating a little bit for a couple of weekends, and she wrote her name down and her number down on a card and handed it to me. And after those couple of weeks, I never saw the girl again, but the card she'd handed me said Estelle Harmon's Actors Workshop, because she was studying acting in Hollywood. She told me about that. That fascinated me. So Jason Robards came in from shooting a movie one night and saw me in the Fantastics, totally toasted. But he came backstage afterwards, actually like a broom closet, and said, yeah, you're pretty good. You should do that for a living. And stumbled out. And literally the next day, I got on the boat and went to Hollywood, took a bus up to Hollywood to Melrose and La Brea. That's where Estelle's workshop was. I went in there and I said, you take the GI Bill? She said, well, why? Yes, we do. I said, put me in your fundamentals class. And here we go. I rented an apartment around the corner, and that was it. And I spent the next 5 years studying with Estelle, and then Stella Adler for 2 years, and Estelle for about 3, Stella Adler for 2, and a few other little coaches and guides that I had along the way. And then I got my first job.
Wow. What was the very first job you got?
It was a film called Jim the World's Greatest. It was a feature film, independent, for $100,000. These 2 18-year-old kids who'd won some sort of a Super 8 film competition at UCLA the year before. And Charles Champlin, the Times critic, the LA Times theater critic,
right,
had been one of the guys who gave him the award, and one of the judges. And they said, well, we want to make a feature. He said, well, show it to me, and when you get it done, let me see it. So we shot this thing for a year on weekends down in Long Beach. No pay. We'd shoot on weekends, Friday night to Monday morning, pay for 1 day film rental, and then we'd crash for about 3 days and then start getting ready to shoot the entire next weekend and pay for 1 day of film rental, of equipment rental. And after a year, we finished the film. They showed it to Charles Champlin. He was blown away, wrote me a front page calendar review. I didn't have an agent. I didn't have $300 in the bank. So, but he said, this guy starring in this film is fantastic. What a career he's going to have. And he showed it to Sid Sheinberg at Universal. They bought it. We reshot half the film. That got me in the union. I got a call from Joan Scott at Writers and Artists Agency.
I remember Joan Scott.
Yeah, you remember?
My brother used to be with Joan.
She was, or he was.
Yeah.
And she said, "You're not represented." She called me at home. She got my number from Sheinberg or somebody, and she called me at home and said, "Would you like an agent?" I said, "Yeah." After 5.5 years, yeah, I'd like an agent.
Not? What the hell?
And so literally, I went overnight with $300 in the bank. I went overnight from being completely just nothing, just a student in various classrooms, to a movie star. It was like I was being sent up on leads in movies and television series and pilots, and I was like, boom. It was just boom. And the film didn't do anything. It opened in Westwood, it ran for 3 weeks and closed to no great accolades, but it got me in the door.
Now, that must have been very disorienting.
Extremely. I mean, it was probably the happiest time of my life because I didn't have any money to worry about. I didn't have any attachments. I didn't have an agent, a manager, a business manager, a PR person, all that stuff that you end up having when you do succeed.
Right.
Quote unquote. But I had nothing but opportunities in front of me every day, things to consider, go in for. Suddenly I was in the milieu that I always wanted to be in. And so it had no downside.
Right.
Every day was so exciting. And sure enough, I got a series, I got Logan's Run, my first series. Only went for a year, but I was the star of it, and that led to other work and miniseries, Centennial, 25-hour miniseries. Excuse me. And then that went to Trapper John, MD, and that was 7.5 years.
Right. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk. I want to segue into a little bit about craft. You said something early on about one of the things that attracted you to this, about changing the way people feel. And to me, one of the most appealing things about what we do, when it's not pure entertainment. I mean, you and I met doing Guys and Dolls, which is just entertainment. Mm-hmm. But when we get to do what I think of as sort of the heart of our work, not that entertainment doesn't have a value, particularly at a time like this. Mm-hmm. And if you've seen, one of my favorite movies, Sullivan's Travels, which has, that great commentary on the value of just entertaining people. Sure. But the other heart of what we do, reaching people's hearts and minds, it's always seemed to me that, or not always, but what I've come to believe about storytelling is that what we do at its highest helps people connect to the other. And that when we connect to the other, we can't otherize them as well. And that can heal. Is that one of the things that drives you in your less commercial work? We all say, oh my God, I have to do this series to pay the mortgage. But when a script comes across your desk at a regional theater where you don't need the money, mm-hmm. You don't have a reason to go to Cleveland. You don't need to go to Cleveland for 8 weeks and live in a hotel for very little money, but you do it sometimes. What helps you make that decision?
That's a great question. And yeah, that's always on my mind. Always. Even when I'm just doing pure entertainment kinds of gigs. It's like I believe that actors act, and you can't sit home and be too picky. You gotta keep working. It's sort of what I think of as the Michael Caine philosophy. Because he's been in some stinker movies, but he's always great. And he just loves to be busy. He wants to keep working and keep the instrument toned and the connection alive. And that's kind of how I feel, because I'm waiting for those opportunities that you're talking about, where it's not just artistic, it's not just interesting or fun. It's also a heart project that's important to me. It's with a message that I need to deliver, or some kind of a connection of the audience to the theme of the piece that I want to make sure and successfully connect. It's like I did a film with Eric Roberts. It's called It's My Party, where 1995 we played these two guys who were lovers. True story. Randall Kleiser directed. Today's Randall's birthday. And it was scary, in 1995, that wasn't something that many actors were up for yet, were up to doing yet, without risking condemnation from various parts of their fan base, Right. I didn't care. It was like the story, the message of the story was so beautiful, and the inclusiveness about what love really means and all that. It was so important to me. And all the work that I had done that didn't mean a lot to me in that way had prepared me to be able to do that as well as I possibly could. And so it doesn't matter to me what I'm doing. I invest myself 100%, 1000%, if such a thing exists, into any project I do, because I want to prepare myself for any opportunity that comes along as an actor to be ready to deliver the goods. That's and if those come along once every 5 projects or 10 projects, that's still a pretty good ratio. Yeah, you got to put bacon, on the table and all that. But if you can fulfill yourself artistically and spiritually, in the same project, you want to be ready to do that. And you want to be offered those. And so I've always tried to keep myself tuned up in that regard. Sometimes you do that by going to acting classes constantly. I didn't really like to do that. I liked I like just doing as many projects as possible. So I've done so many thousands of hours of television, and a lot of it probably isn't very good, but I don't judge it with that in mind. I worked, did my best, learned something. Most times I'll learn something and then move forward.
Well, there's always so much to keep learning on set, you know.
Yeah.
What do you feel, you know, you've worked a lot in film, you've worked in television, you've worked on stage. Are there things that you would say to young actors who are starting out? I have a lot of I taught in New York, I teach in LA now. And the difference between the students who walk through my door is extraordinary to me. I had students in New York who I taught an Uta Hagen technique class, and they came in and they worked on those exercises, and they had questions about those exercises. And I have students walk into my classes in LA who've never taken an acting class before, and the first thing they want to ask about is how to get an agent. Mm-hmm. And so somebody wants to be an actor as opposed to a TV star or a theater actor. What is your advice? What are your thoughts on that? Because you do it all, and that to me, that is dear to my heart, and that's what I think you need to do to be the best actor you can be.
And I agree. I have huge respect for actors who are not who haven't stuck themselves in one niche, you know, that they can adjust, make the adjustments, and understand the adjustments they're making to work in any medium. I even love to do books on tape, because that's a kind of hybrid medium that requires a whole different level of acting and subtlety and a finer touch than a lot of theater acting does, and yet more commitment than a lot of close-up television acting does. I love all forms of acting. I do radio dramas with LA Theater Works all the time.
Yeah, I've done a few of those. Those are a ball.
It all teaches you something, and it stretches your boundaries as an actor. And I think each one of those mediums that you learn and become hopefully excellent at enlarges the other mediums as well, because it delineates what's required for each one. So when I finally made it, you know, I had a reverse career. I came east to Hollywood and started in feature film, you know, went to classes for 5 years, but I started in feature films, worked my way into television, and then I bought a theater. I bought the Coast Playhouse on Santa Monica Boulevard, and I did 60 productions there. I wasn't in all of them, but I was in a fourth of them, and produced all of them, and I taught myself theater. Most people start in theater and then work their way, you know, to the film industry.
Right.
I wanted the three-dimensionality. I just got it in a kind of reverse way. So for me, I think it's super important that you do all of the above as much as you possibly can. Try to do live performance. It used to be Equity Waiver, and it was such a great opportunity for us out in LA, you know, such a great opportunity. And that's what my theater was that I eventually bought, was an Equity Waiver theater. And that was such a great way for actors to learn their craft who didn't start in New York or didn't start in Chicago in serious, high quality theater situations, to really learn how to stretch their muscles. And then when, you know, and they're still fighting for the guest parts, you know, the guest role one week or another week, and going in and having to be a film actor, you know, and minimize. But I think they're starting to understand how to enlarge and minimize things, and what that really means. It's not just theoretical. Theoretical. It's real, and you know what that is. You know how to be an honest actor at the same time. Be honest between your chin and the top of your head, or can you be honest from the bottom of your feet to the tip of your fingers, you know,
right,
on a big stage, and sell it to the back row without indicating, you know, without cheating and lying or overemphasizing, or, you know, to still keep it honest.
Right.
It just requires the doing. You know, I don't think, I mean, there's wonderful actors who don't do theater, but I think they owe their directors a whole lot more credit than their directors probably are getting for their career.
Right.
I don't think most actors that don't know how to do theater can look at a production and understand all of the elements. Like this was Stella Adler, you know, it was understand the author's intent, serve the author's intent. So that means you got to look at from the big picture and then fine tune down to your role within that big picture. And how does that role fit in there? What did the author intend for all these pieces, the essence of all of these pieces to be? And how can you find that essence, bring honesty to it, and help the play as a whole? It's a kind of a team effort.
Right.
As opposed to, you know, the more methody, don't say anything until you actually feel it. If the whole play is falling apart in the meantime, while you're waiting to get there to feel it, that's their problem.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So not that there isn't a value to that, you know, learn how to find it, learn how to be honest with things, but also serve that author's intention, you know?
I place more stock in that, in method in rehearsal.
Yes.
I don't want to see that on stage. I mean, I want to see the fruit of it on stage.
Yeah.
But once you and I get on stage together, we have to put on the show. Unless of course I fall asleep, which is a whole nother.
I don't know that I've ever seen an actor fall asleep on stage. Oh no, wait, I think I did one time. I think it was in La Jolla.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was that guy? That was you.
It was me. It was actually in the cruise running notes to make sure that I was awake before scene 3, act 2, scene 3.
Matthew before scene 3.
Yeah. You can hardly blame me.
You had to lay in that bed for an entire act. An act.
For act 2, scene 2, I was just on stage behind a curtain in a bed, waiting
for us to finish our work out front, and then
for the bullshit to be over. So
blah, 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 blah.
Yeah,
Matthew.
Yeah. We have some great. I want to get back to some more of this. Actually, before we go to the pictures, you said something that I think is really interesting. You were talking about waiver theater and what a opportunity that was, and what a laboratory it was to work in, and a lot of that is gone now. There's still some incredible theater companies in LA. There's PRT, there's Rogue Machine, there's The Road, there's Antaeus. Great work being done by wonderful people. But a lot of the waiver stuff is gone now. But we also now have this thing where I can take this and software on my computer,
right,
and learn Premiere Pro, which I've been doing during the lockdown. I know how to edit now and do special effects and titles, and anybody can do that. And for a subscription to Premiere Pro, which is top editing software, is what, $200 a year or something like that, and you can make a movie that is of a quality that could be, if the material is good. But in terms of the technology, for a couple of grand, you can have less than that. You can have everything you need to make a professional movie. And people
playing at Sundance is showing iPhone movies now.
Right. So you feel like that's the opportunity now for young artists to explore that as their laboratory, rather than something like waiver theater.
Yeah, absolutely. I think waiver theater for me was a chance to work with different actors in front of audiences,
Right.
And that's what I loved about it, was that under the pressure of a live audience, it's a different kind of pressure than what you get on a set of no matter whether you're shooting an iPhone movie or a $200 million blockbuster. those, your crew on any film set is half of them are napping in their chairs while you're performing. But when you're with an audience in a live theater,
while you're performing,
when I'm performing, not when you are, but when I'm performing. But with a live audience, you can hear them, you can see them, you can sense them. They're like a character in the piece, and that for me that's the magic of theater. That's the magic that I don't think. I mean, I watched Hamilton the other day. The filmed play, fantastic, but it doesn't have the magic of the live audience. The breathing, you can hear the breathing interrupting because of what's happening on the stage. You're interplaying with an audience all the time, and to me, that's the magic that we've enjoyed with Guys and Dolls and so many different things that I've done. And that, I just did The Lion in Winter down at Laguna Playhouse a few months ago, and man, I can't get enough of it. And there you go. That wasn't for any money. That wasn't a let's put food on the table kind of job. That was first of all, there's some of the best words ever written for an actor to say. And then secondly, I was working with Francis Fisher and a great cast. And so it was just magical. I loved every moment of it. I could do it for months more.
That's wonderful. Now you have a clip from something that you wanted to show. Is that right? Well,
I just thought, okay, here's minimalized acting for television. This is a Hallmark movie. That's a Hallmark movie that I did called Signed, Sealed, Delivered a few years ago. I do a few of those a year, and with this same cast. But this is where I'm playing the father of a guy who I've just come back into his life, and I'm talking to Eric and I'm keeping it tight and small. It's not stage acting. So I just thought, okay, a minute of this will be an example of stage of film acting versus stage acting for me.
All right. Well, let's take a look at it here. I'm gonna start it.
You're not here to help me through this, are you? It's not what this is about. What? We haven't spoken in 15 years. Suddenly you show up when there's money involved?
We haven't spoken because you wouldn't see me. That's more than 15 years of letters that I wrote to you. All of them marked return to sender. I finally got the message, so I backed off. But I always figured that someday you would need me, and today is the day, and that's why I'm here.
I find that hard to believe.
I don't care about Harvey Schmitz's money. I think it's the least he could have done for you. And believe me, I'm happy for you, Oliver. I know what it takes to get by on a postal worker's salary.
At least I stayed at the post office.
But accepting Harvey's money means finding out the truth, and I came to tell it to you.
Why?
Because you're my son.
Hey, you're not bad.
Yeah, it's just it's no great shakes of a scene. It's a cute little scene, but if I was doing that on a stage with him, it would have been a whole different way of performing it. Yeah. And still find some honesty in it and move the audience hopefully. But it's just own the space that you're acting in. Just own the space that you're acting in. Don't try to own anything more than that. But be sure that you own it if you're on a stage, and that's a big space.
Well, what was interesting watching that, because I teach on camera acting, and what was interesting watching that is you're in a medium wide, and he's in a not a tight close up, but a tighter close up at the top of the scene,
right? And
he's holding stock still. And you're in a medium wide, and you've got a little more, you're not bouncing all over the place, but you've got a little, and it was what you were talking about before. Is this where I have to act?
Right.
Is this where I have to act? Can I act from my belly button up? Can I act from my knees up? and how important it is for an actor to know, to say to a DP, you know, what's my frame? Where am I?
And that was the beauty of starting when I did in 75, I guess 76 was my first job. But then doing Trapper John for 7.5 years, I'd go to dailies. They used to have dailies.
Right. Yeah.
Go to dailies. They would yesterday's work would show up today at noon, and you'd all break for lunch, and you'd take your lunch over to the theater, and you'd watch your dailies from yesterday.
Yeah.
And I was the only actor in the show that went to dailies. But I wanted to understand, why is it important to hit your mark? What happens if you don't hit your mark? Oh, my eyes are all fuzzy and that shot doesn't end up on camera. What happens if you don't match your movements? What happens if you're sipping your coffee on a different line each take? What happens if you are doing an over the shoulder and it's over your shoulder and you're shadowing the other guy's face? You're sabotaging his performance.
Right.
What happens? I wanted to see what happens, and I learned from trial and error, day after day after day, and to the point that no one has to talk to me anymore about that. I find my light. I always find my light. I always find my mark. I always don't block the other actor. I always match my movements. I set those things up on a kind of subliminal level before I even walk on the set. I kind of know what I'm going to do so that I can let them go. They're locked in. And I can really go into the performance,
right?
You know, start to believe in what I'm doing and saying, and let the technical stuff not sabotage. You know, either in the moment or in post when they're trying to edit you together.
Right. We have a question. Actually, this is from a woman who is a former student of mine. She says, "I saw the pilot first season of SSD, Signed, Sealed, and Delivered. What was your experience like working with Martha Williamson?"
Martha Williamson is one of my oldest friends. She was one of the writers on a sitcom that I did in 1990. Can't remember the name of it now. The Family Guy. The Family Guy. She was one of the writers. It was a Miller Boyette sitcom, and we became friends. And then she got hired to do Touched by an Angel. And I did 4 of those episodes as an actor and directed 2 of them. So she's thrown work my way a lot. And then when she did Signed, Sealed, Delivered for Hallmark, they did 1 season, and she said, we want to bring in his father. So will you come join us? I said, sure. I thought it was a one-off, and I ended up coming back. I think I've done about 7 or 8 2-hour movies now over the last 4 or 5 years. With
you've done a lot for Hall. That's a door I haven't been able to crack open. I don't think not a lot of New York Jews on those Hallmark movies. You know, I think I have to.
Well, we got to fix that. I'm doing a series with Treat Williams called Chesapeake Shores for Hallmark.
Yeah, and, we need like a Hallmark Hanukkah. I haven't
play a lawyer. There's no reason I can't have a New York Jew friend lawyer.
Oh, okay, great. All right, I'll be there.
Even though it's in Chesapeake Shores, Maryland, but we shoot it in Vancouver.
Oh goodness,
Philly.
Wow.
They just have to keep the snow-capped mountains out of the shot every time we shoot anything.
Oh my God! All right, let's look at a couple of other pictures of you from your storied past. We can talk about.
We have one from something we did. We don't, do we?
We don't have anything of the 2 of us together. We do have very briefly. This was me in the middle with Doug Carfrae. Doug Carfrae on my left and Kevin Ligon on my right.
That's right. Nathan Detroit.
Yep. That was singing oldest established. But let's get back to you. But that was that was fun.
That was really fun.
I had fun torturing you in that show.
You did.
You remember what I did to you?
I remember many things, but which one are you referring to? Your favorite torture? No, tell me what it was.
We had just met. I think it was the day we met. I said to you, I said, listen, I don't want you to worry. I'm going to make sure that you get your entrance applause every night.
Yes.
And you said, please don't. Please don't. And I did, because there was nothing you could do about it. Because when you entered, I had to say, Sky Masterson, and I would do the biggest sort of presentational, here he is, folks.
Yep.
And the audience would applaud, and you were looking at me like, you son of a bitch. Every time.
I have to live up to that.
Yeah. But that was a ball. But we've got some anything in particular you want me to pick up here? There's Steel Pier. I believe this one is Steel Pier.
Yeah, that's Steel Pier. That was Kander and Ebb musical. I originated the part of Mick, who was the MC, or sort of the boss of the entire affair, and the bad guy. And I had a great time with that. Karen Ziemba, and a fantastic cast. And that was 1995 on Broadway. That was my first Broadway show. And then I think there's a picture. I think I gave you a picture also from Follies.
Well, there was one here that I didn't know that you had done. I never knew that you played Cassie in a chorus line.
There you go.
I
thought from Follies. That's from Follies. I played Ben in Follies, and that was the big show number that I have a breakdown in. I'm supposed to be going about halfway through this song, Live, Laugh, Love, and then I start to forget the lyrics, and I end up in a puddle on the floor, and the sets are changing, and music's pounding, and my kids, I forgot to warn them when they came to see the show on opening night. They all thought I had really blown it. The dad was wrecking the show.
Wow.
And all my kids were in tears. My 3 daughters and my son were all in tears in the audience, because I stupidly had not warned them that, oh, there's this scene where it looks like I'm forgetting everything, but don't worry about it.
Gotcha. See, I thought you were singing the music in the mirror in this shot. So
No.
That's how much I know. And let's see, what else do we have?
I think Chicago.
Oh, this is a picture of you. I did find a picture of you and me. This one here from
that's from North Shore. That's one of my favorite films I've ever made, because I'm a surfer and have been my whole life. And I got to actually play like in the Karate Kid. What's his name? That wax on, wax off.
Mr. Miyagi.
Mr. Miyagi. I was sort of the Mr. Miyagi of this film, North Shore, where I teach a kid from Arizona how to surf in Hawaii with the big wave surfers. And this is Laird Hamilton, who played the bad guy in that movie. I'm a shaper, and he doesn't like the board I shaped for him.
Okay. Now you're very involved in the Surfrider Foundation.
Yeah, I've been a member of the Surfrider Foundation from its inception, about 27 years now, 28 years. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about their work.
On the advisory board of it still. Well, it started out, in Southern California, just trying to protect surf sites. There was a place down in Dana Point that we called surfers called Killer Dana. It was a great point break. And they built a marina and totally eliminated the surf spot. And that sort of, that wrecked every surfer's favorite surf spot. So that kind of what stimulated it. And so the idea was to protect surf zones all around the world. And surfing has probably quintupled in size in terms of the amount of people that do it in that time, in that 28 years. But we don't just protect surf sites. No, we just protect coastal zones. We work against hardening coastlines, because that just passes the buck basically to some other area. If you harden this coastline, it's going to wear away somebody else's beach.
Right.
Let nature run its course. It does what it wants to do. There's been a lot of work at Malibu because of that, because they built it up so much and got rid of the lagoon, and the lagoon is what provided the sand for the beaches. And so it's all been reversed and brought back, but it was like a 30-year period that it had to go through all of the different rounds to come back to, oh, we should let it be natural. Okay. But I literally, I've gone to Surf Rider, and they've saved surf spots when I lived up in Oregon for 20 years. Open beaches. Nobody can own beaches anymore. No homeowner. The beach is for everyone. From the high tide line on, nobody can own that property. That's all around this country, and internationally. It's an international organization. So it's, to me, it's very close to home. You know, growing up in Catalina, I just love the ocean. I love the being on the edge of the ocean and the earth and that's, I've traveled the whole world doing that. So I want to make sure that it's as protected as possible and that other people get to enjoy it like I have.
Do you still spend time out in Catalina?
Yeah. I just sold the home that I grew up in there a couple of years ago, but because I just wasn't using it enough to warrant it. But yeah, you know, I graduated with 31 kids, 28 of them I went to kindergarten with from the high school over there. And probably a third of them still live on the island. I would go over every year. We have at a reunion. This year it got canceled because of COVID, but it was going to happen in late August, early September, but it's been postponed for 1 year. So it'll be the first year we don't have a reunion.
Oh, that's rough.
That's all right. We see each other a lot.
Okay, good. Well, this has been great. Unless you have anything else you need or want to share with my viewers, a last bit of Silver Fox wisdom.
Yeah,
I've lost the opportunity to be a Silver Fox.
I see you saved it up. I love people who want to be actors. I love that desire in people. I think it says a lot about who you are. I think it's a good choice in life because it means that you have to put yourself in other people's shoes. It means you have to work on empathy. You have to open your heart and your mind to embrace everybody in society, because that will help you become a better actor and understand how to play various characters and commit to them and quit judging people so much. You know, I've played so-called good guys and so-called bad guys, and I've loved all of them. I've given myself reasons to love all of them by opening my heart up and understanding that nobody sets out to be a bad guy.
Well, and that is such a crucial thing for any actor, young actors in particular, coming into this profession. The idea of that, I always tell my students, you are never playing the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot be playing the bad guy.
Right.
Let the director and the author tell us that that's the bad guy. You go for what you want, what you need. You have reasons for what you want, for what you need. It's what made somebody like Bruno Gantz's performance as Hitler so incredible. God knows how he did it, but he found a way inside.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we say, I mean, Hitler was a monster, obviously. There are other monsters in modern times, right? And it's very easy to say that is a monster, but if we don't understand how a human being becomes that, then we can't do anything about it.
And I think if you want to horrify someone, then show how everybody has their own rationale. And that's what's most horrifying to me about bad guys, quote unquote, who you care about. It's like, oh my God, I recognize that person. I recognize those elements of that person. I have some of those elements in me. If you can humanize them, it makes it all more terrifying because it could be the guy you just walked by on the sidewalk.
Right. And the flip side of that, that's the teaching part of what we do, when you can take the audience and say, look at the other, look at this, understand it. Then the other side of that coin is when you can show somebody in the audience themselves. When you play somebody who is weak or broken, with compassion for that, when you, the actor, find compassion for that, and you are able to tell someone in the audience, I see you, there's no greater gift we can give another human being than to say, I see you, I hear you.
Yeah.
And we get to do that sometimes.
Yeah. I think you change people's hearts. That's the goal. That's what I love about this business at its best, is that people leave the television or the theater somehow changed. Even if it was just temporarily changed, it offered an insight they wouldn't have had without your help into life, into who they are, into what they want to believe, and to who they care about. I just love that you can have that. I mean, doctors, psychologists, people work with patients. I suppose they get the same reward in the big picture, but I feel like it's a magician because you create something out of nothing.
Yeah. A show that did that this year for me, in a really compelling way, did you watch the limited series Unbelievable?
I saw the first couple of shows and then I lost it, and I don't know where. I didn't ever see the end of it. But it was great.
It was based on a true story, a series of Pulitzer Prize winning articles, but the compassion that it had for everybody involved in that story, even the people who were making the mistakes, that it didn't make anybody a bad guy. I mean, except for the rapist who committed the crime.
Yeah.
But the other crime that the story was about, which was the how this young woman got lost in the system and chewed up and spat out and injured by the system, it told even that story with compassion. And because of that, it was so incredibly watchable, and you could learn something from it rather than just, finger shaking at what went wrong.
Right. There was a series 2 years ago, I think it was called 7 Seconds. Did you ever see that?
No.
7 Seconds. And it was similar in that regard, that it made
about the young black boy who's killed by a cop.
Right.
White cop.
Seems like you would go, okay, good guy, bad guy,
Right.
That isn't the way it was done.
And it's his mother. A lot of the series is the relationship between his mother and the cop, right? Dealing with the.
Yes. And amazing actors and wonderfully written. And it was, it was very memorable, and the kind of project that, that I dream of getting every once in a blue moon and being able to be part of. Yeah.
Well, this has just been fantastic. I always love sitting down and talking to you, even if it's just us, but you are always so generous with your time. You've come down and spoken to my students at South Coast Repertory, and you're doing this. I need to talk to the audience for a second. Subscribe to this channel if you will. And remember to click the bell icon when you do, so that you get notifications of upcoming live streams. And head over to my website, MatthewArkin.com, and subscribe to my newsletter. You'll get articles and notifications of articles and other live streams on acting, writing, the art of storytelling. And tune in on Wednesday nights for Two Brothers Talk About Food and Movies, a show that I do every Wednesday at 7 Pacific, 10 Eastern on YouTube with my brother Anthony. We talk about a different movie. This week it's going to be Last Man Standing. And all of the information for that is in the comments section, in the description section under this video. So, Gregory, thank you. This has just been absolutely fantastic. And I hope you can come back and talk to us again sometime.
I'd love to. I had a great time. Good luck to all your students. And next time the tacos are on me.
Oh, okay. Great. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, pal.
Bye-bye.
Bye.